Wednesday in Tryon, North Carolina, and the drought is definitely over. We've had 3 days of rain, on and off, but many times heavy. And what went from drought to now is mud. But we certainly needed the rain, and we're not going to complain. Water is an essential for life, so we thankful for the rain. We've been looking at selecting a leader, biblical basis and requirements for a leader. Certainly far more stringent than the U.S. government's constitution. 35 years of age, 14 years a resident, born a U.S. citizen, and there's some debate about what that really means. But in any case, we've taken a look at some hot button issues. We've looked at those spiritual requirements for a spiritual leader and pastor and deacon and elder in the church, and found that the criteria would certainly not make either candidate for president eligible for president. Nevertheless, we've been looking at some hot button issues and saying, okay, we've got to choose between the two, and to not vote is giving up the right that we have to try to choose the lesser of two evils, if you will. And so we've looked at homosexuality, immigration, jobs, and today we want to take a look at the military. What is the size military we should have? What should be their role for the U.S. government? And taking a look at what the scripture says about military and military might. As a matter of fact, I was just reading on the internet an interesting article about whether or not we really needed to use the nuclear bomb in defeating Japan. And I'm sure that will be debated for generations and generations to come. And how many lives did it cost, and how many lives did it save by not having an extended battle or having to go into Japan by force and defeat the Japanese army. Nevertheless, here we are with the military size and adequacy, and what is our scriptural basis to take a look at this? Well, in Romans 12:18 it says, if possible. Notice it says, if possible. So far as it depends on you, another restrictor. So far as it depends upon you, be at peace with all men. Well, we know that sometimes it's not possible to have peace. And sometimes it doesn't depend only on us. But nevertheless, the scriptural guideline is to try to be at peace with all men. Now, what would have happened if we had been in peace at any price in World War I or World War II? Well, chances are we would be living in a totally different kind of world, not the world that we really would like to have. So we know that it's not always possible. We know that it doesn't always depend upon us, that there are other people in the world who may want to have war for their own personal gains. And then the second verse that I would give you is 1 Peter 2:16. Act as free men, and do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as bondslaves of God. There's no question. Whoever takes on the presidency and whoever leads our military and whoever advises our president has to have great wisdom from God. When do you intervene? When are human rights more important than peace? When is it necessary to defend your own freedom, even if it be offshore, where an enemy is encroaching upon your freedom and may get to a place where they're undefeatable because of the advancements they've made? Difficult decisions. Certainly, with the information that we had at the time that we invaded Iraq, it was very, very difficult to make that decision. And I remember writing a personal letter to President Bush. Whether he ever really read it or not, I don't know. But on our first invasion of Iraq, I said, let's not make this a war like Vietnam. Let's not tie our hands behind our backs. After all, the leader of Iraq was then saying that he would use mass methods of extermination on not only his own people, but on our troops. That he had nerve gases, trenches filled with fuel. he had all kinds of evil devised plans to prevent the Iraqi invasion and the stopping of the genocide, if you will, of about a third of his people. And, you know, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback any kind of a war and say, well, if I had been the leader, I would have done this and that, after the war has already been fought and after there are or are not evidences that there were weapons of mass destruction inside Iraq, or whether they got significantly moved quickly into other countries or buried so that they would never be found. Yes, we certainly don't know the answers to all of those questions. And again, it will be debated for generations. Wisdom, godly wisdom, wisdom that would preserve and protect our freedom, wisdom that would say that we want to love our neighbors as ourselves. And when we see genocide, when we see human rights trampled upon in massive numbers, at what point do you step up and say, it's no longer possible, it no longer depends only on me, but we must take action? Difficult. Recently, my brother wrote me and he said, who would ever want to be president? That's a good answer, a good question for an answer. Who would ever want to run as president? Who wants that responsibility to send our troops in where they're killed and to send them into countries where capital punishment is being used to genocide a people, versus how many innocent bystanders will be killed in the crossfire of war? Tough, tough decisions. Hope you'll look at both the Democratic and the Republican platforms, and that you'll take a look at what both candidates say about what their criteria might be for not only the existing wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, but take a step backward yourself and say, what do we need to do? What is our role and responsibility as the greatest power on the earth? Where do we draw the line? When do we say, just let ISIS do whatever they want to do? Or when do we say, no, it's time that we have to stamp out ISIS? Those are difficult decisions. But it's one of those hot button issues that you ought to consider when you vote for your candidate and choosing your leader. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.